Did we witness a generation inauguration? Find out on this episode of Pushback.
Go, 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 Jonny, go, 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 Jonny, go, 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 Jonny, go, go.
If you're concerned about the direction our culture is heading, then maybe it's time to push back.
Hello, my dear listeners. This is Dr. Jonny, and this is another episode of Pushback. What a week it's been politically, for sure. Such a transition and a change that took place this week, and I really want to lean into that on this podcast. Again, I just want to thank you for tuning into Season 6 as we move forward in Pushback and the cultural things that affect us. And if you are a new listener this season, I invite you to go back and listen to some of the more pertinent podcasts in the past to just get a feel for where we're heading and what we're doing. But I also laid out a little bit of a vision for this year in the first two podcasts of Season 6. Talking about the ways of God and his ways are higher than our ways. And when we talk about cultural truth and reality in which we live, we have to understand that we have a superior way, and we don't need to hide from that. We don't need to shy away from that. We need to lean into it and be the greatest advocates of it. I said we need to be a zealot. We need to sell the accolades. We need to sell the pertinent pieces and the most important cultural pieces of the kingdom. That's what we're here for. And then we need to be the ones that are the flag wavers, the ones that go in the front and shout it from the mountaintops. That's what we're here to do. This is entitled Generation Inauguration. My family and I had sort of an inauguration party as we celebrated this new administration coming in. And it's impossible to not appreciate or realize the cultural shift that took place sort of in one day. When you look at the policies from Trump's inaugural speech and even the executive orders that took place shortly thereafter, how things shifted and changed in a powerful, powerful way. And we have to appreciate where we've come from and where we're going, just from a policy standpoint. And so it was a great day for sure for conservative measures. Now, I want to just list just some of the things that he talked about and some of the executive orders that he enacted very quickly in his administration, because they're all things that we've talked about in Pushback over the last 5 years. Some of these cultural shifts that we saw as detrimental or harmful to our culture, and how he has swept in. Not only how he has swept in, but how the electorate has shifted and changed towards this common sense transformation that's taking place in our culture. Let me just go through a few of those, because I think it's worth repeating and maybe celebrating as wins for this conservative culture or cultural shift that we've been calling for, even in Pushback. The first, that was probably the most obvious, is closing the borders. We've talked about illegal immigration and obviously the harm and the challenge that it creates to a country with open borders. Trump has talked about how it's hard to even be a country at all when your borders are open. He talked about how we defend other people's borders but don't defend our own. And not only that, but what's coming in is not only just illegal immigrants, but illegal drugs and weaponry and even possible terrorism. And so we've been through this many times, but closing the border on that first day makes us all just feel better, I hope, safer. There's work to be done, and he's going to be returning, especially the dangerous, violent illegals, back first, and then working through some of these other illegal immigration issues. It's essential for us as a society to have borders. I did a whole podcast on how I believe that things in the natural actually sometimes mirror the things in the spiritual. And the Father has given us borders. He gave Adam and Eve borders, a place to live that is ours to tend and to keep. And so it's so critical for us to understand our role in that. And when there are no borders, it also takes place in the spiritual. When we live culturally with no borders or no moral compass, that things tend to deteriorate. So I believe that this is a prophetic act by the president, whether he knows it or not, by closing the borders, protecting our borders. It actually helps us circle the wagons of our own country to create this healing and this moralistic change that I believe is coming in the wake of this as well. He talked about eliminating woke and DEI requirements. We've had many podcasts talking about this woke ideology and how harmful it is. And some of the classes that our children in public school are being indoctrinated into is staggering. It's heartbreaking. And I believe that when we, as he eliminates these requirements that are there, I think common sense will start to take over. I believe we're seeing it already in some of the large corporations who felt like their hands were tied, whether it be financially or socially, to implement some of these crazy requirements. And now they're starting to back away from those. And I think that's an incredible sign that this wasn't really wanted in the first place. And this wasn't something that was helpful. It's not something that's even moving us towards any kind of equality or equity. It's not creating any kind of momentum towards healing in our country. And in fact, I believe it's actually created quite the opposite. And so this isn't an opportunity for us to become bigoted. This isn't an opportunity for us to thumb our nose at our fellow citizens. I think it's a great opportunity to show that our hearts are for each other as brothers and sisters of Christ in this country, and that we can turn our generosity and our hearts towards each other without the government mandating some type of artificial behavior. Is that fair? I think that's fair to say. And so, Christians, this is our call to actually rise up and be the ones that are on the forefront, the tip of the spear in regards to healing, especially in light of racial pain and history in our country. We can be the answer, and it's the better answer than anything that the government is mandating us. He removed us from the Paris Climate Accords. I believe that's fairly significant. Because again, it's a pathway of sort of nothingness. And it's an incredible loss of resource. And I mean, he's seeing that people aren't even paying their fair share or even following the accords anyway. And so we were removed from those. I believe that was great. But even more important than that, he ended the Green New Deal, which I believe drove and fired up inflation in our country. As well as maybe this notion that nobody really wanted it in the first place. I shouldn't say nobody. I'm sure there are some people that saw that there would be some type of advantage to it, but quickly we saw that all it did was crush the economy. And when we have common sense implementation to policy, we realize that you can be as green as you want to be. You have freedom to do whatever you need to do, but it doesn't need to be governmentally mandated. And so removing us from that, I think, is going to be a huge sigh of relief for this economy and moving in the direction of common sense. He ended the EV mandates and he ended COVID vaccine mandates, which I was never a fan of. I was a big fan of the COVID vaccine. You can go back and look at that as a physician. I believe that it was important. I believe as a physician, I could probably make the case that it ended the pandemic. Enough people getting vaccinated finally tipped the scales towards this horrible virus ending. So I was pushing the vaccine. I was never pushing the vaccine mandate. I never thought it was the role of the government to do that. The role of the government is to inform and then get out of the way. And so I love the fact that he is not implementing that and the EV mandates, which again are bankrupting us. We can choose whatever car we want to buy. And as he hopefully is going to drill, baby, drill, I'm guessing the gas prices will go down and gas-powered cars are probably going to increase in sales again because it's going to be the most cost-effective way of going. It's called common sense. I believe that perhaps the thing I'm most excited about from a cultural governmental standpoint is this implementation of a branch of the government called DOGE, D-O-G-E. It stands for Department of Government Efficiency, and Elon Musk, of all people, is going to be running that. It's going to just be like a 2-year endeavor, and then it's going to dissolve and go away. But it's going to start eliminating the bureaucratic overreach and establishment that's been entrenched in Washington that is wasting our tax money. So much of what we send to Washington is being exploited and washed away. And this Department of Government Efficiency is going to go through all governmental branches with a fine-tooth comb and eliminate those things that are simply not necessary. And a lean, mean, fighting machine government is going to be so much better for us in the long term in regards to our taxes, our finances, and especially our national debt. I've done many podcasts on this national debt issue, and I believe that it's important. And I believe it's a great sign of leadership from the Trump administration to see the need for government efficiency. There have been reports that part of our government is running on 1928 technology. Oh my, that's over almost 100 years ago. We can do so much better, and we need to do better, and we have to have somebody that comes in and throws things into the chopper to allow things to be trimmed back and become more efficient. I am so excited about this. This is what I've been calling for forever. I didn't know it was even possible. I didn't even know that a politician would even want to tackle this, honestly, because we sort of just drift away and allow the debt to accumulate, and it's not acceptable for us or for the generations. I believe this was a generation inauguration, because everything that I've laid out has been for the benefit of the generations. It's going to affect us in the next decade, I believe, in a positive way, but I believe it's also going to affect generations to come. I think that's that important. And I believe that his most provocative thing that he said that set culture, that shifted culture, was him saying that the Trump administration is going to recognize 2 genders, male and female. It's common sense. It's common biology. But we needed a leader to stand up and be secure and have enough courage to say it out loud. I can't even believe that he would have to. But he did, and I respect him for that. And I believe it's a line in the sand that says, come on, people, let's do what's right for our people and what's right for common sense. So my friends, these were generational wins, and the list can go on, but I believe these are just some that jumped out at me during this inauguration week. And what an opportunity for us to allow these policies to work. We need to be proactive, we need to be an advocate for these, and we need to participate in the process. We need to show the world that the Lord's ways are higher than our ways. And these line up with his ways, establishing borders, eliminating the woke ideology, eliminating government mandates, 2 genders, male and female, operating in efficiency. These are kingdom principles and kingdom ways of operating. And so when they line up with it, guess what? There's going to be blessing that's going to be released to the generations. And I'm super excited about that. See, I believe that 51% is the key number. Not everybody agrees with anything that I said, and there's probably many people that my whole list of wins would have been their list of losses. And I get that, and the percentage is probably well over 40% of people would disagree with my list and call them losses rather than wins. And so I get that, but 51% is the key number in a democracy because it shifts political policy. Politicians pay attention to the 51%. And I believe that the Trump administration saw an opening with regards to the border. It was well over 51% that felt that, hey, we should have a protected border. And they could run on that because policy follows the people's hearts. And I think it's important to also know that politicians don't set and shape the culture. Families set and shape the culture. And I believe that families, American families, still create the 51%. And I believe that Christian families, if all the Christians would align their ways with God's ways and see that his ways are higher than our ways, that we can actually shift policy, political policy. And we saw what happens when that occurs. Dramatic things can change. Now, with all that being said, I am an equal opportunity pushbacker. And I think it's important that I see that and explain to you, my listeners, that not everything was a win this election cycle. See, sometimes political wins are at an expense of key political compromise. And I believe that there was compromise in, I believe, the most important political civil rights issue of our time. And that, of course, is the issue of abortion. There was compromise on the GOP side that I believed allowed them to cool off the rhetoric of abortion, sort of push it aside and allow them to get elected. Now, politically, that might have been a really savvy move. And I get it. I'm not here saying that it was the wrong move. I think it's important that the Trump administration was able to implement their heart on so many issues, of which I just laid out. And yet, in the background is this one, I believe, the most important political issue of our generation. See, I believe the number is 51%. I believe over 51% of Americans still support abortion in various forms. And that's the part that breaks my heart. So the political position of ending abortion was a losing one for the GOP. The moralistic stance of saying all abortion is wrong isn't a winning political stance. And so there had to be compromise. Trump knew this, so he compromised. He sent it to the states, even though Roe v. Wade was one of the most important dominoes that needed to fall to eliminate the, quote, right or national protection to an abortion. It transferred the decision of abortion to the states. Trump could ride that and in some ways wash his hands from the discussion. Now, I see it as a savvy move. I get it. But for those who have been fighting the issue for the unborn, for the cause, have found that move, and I'm going to quote this, quote, discouraging, end quote, demoralizing, end quote, and many felt betrayed. Let's be clear, there have been so many advocates for life that have been supportive of the GOP. For them to compromise was a slap in the face. I'm just being honest. Was it an important political move? It probably was. And again, politicians pay attention to the 51%. So my friends, that is the key. That is the target. It always comes back to the heart of the people. See, turning the decision to the states has resulted in somewhat of a mixed bag, if you have been following. I'm in the state of Minnesota. It's been a mixed bag for sure. 12 states have a total abortion ban. That is a move in the right direction. When Roe v. Wade is overturned, these 12 states are able to take a stance and take a hard stance. 29 states have abortion bans based on gestational duration. 7 states ban abortion at or before 18 weeks of gestation. Some states even down to 6-7 weeks. That's a step in the right direction. 22 states ban abortion at some point after 18 weeks. And 9 states and the District of Columbia do not restrict abortion on the basis of gestational duration. These are the things that ought to raise our eyebrows. It's a mixed bag. Wins in some states, losses in others. The fight is still very much in front of us, but my friends, the fight is the 51%. See, it's probably not a huge net change, if we can be honest, in regards to abortion. But it proves that you can't legislate behavior or hearts. No matter what the legislation is, that doesn't change behavior or hearts. And it shows, I believe, that politicians are not the answer. It's the hearts of the people. The politicians follow the 51%. So my friends, let's be clear as we go forward, even in this Trump administration, 51% is the goal. It's the short-term goal. 100% is the kingdom cultural goal. Let's be clear. But I believe that even we can have a 100% cultural shift towards life. And I believe that abortion can even be legal, but would not be desired. Is that pie in the sky? I don't think it is. I believe that we can understand who we are as a people and understand the moralistic implications of this and cause a shift, because it's not who we are as a country. We are not a country that kills their babies. That's a moralistic statement. I believe that we can look our fellow countrymen in the eyes and say, this is not who we are. We're not a country that kills their own babies. It's not what we do. And I believe that if we can be bold enough to engage in these conversations, not sweep it on the rug, not wash our hands from it, not talk about it 4 years in the next political cycle, but if we can see how important it is, then we can realize that we, the people, actually set policy. See, we saw what could happen in one inauguration day. I just created a list, a very important, powerful list. It's when the majority calls for a change. So we have a target. First it's 51%, and then it's 100%. That's the target in my lifetime. That's what I'm going to continue to fight for. We're looking for generational change, so that maybe even the next inauguration could be a generation inauguration, where we continue to fight for the unborn. And here's what I believe. I believe that this next generation is actually trending pro-life. And here's my response. Why wouldn't they? See, the culture of death is dark and it's evil. And I believe it's being rejected. I believe it's being rejected in the hearts of the next generation. And that's a target. We can appeal to this younger next generation about the value of their life, about the purpose of their life. And then they can extrapolate that to all life. No matter skin color, no matter rich or poor, no matter born or unborn, the value of life can go forward. I believe that we need to be engaged. That's the point of this podcast, is to engage you, to connect with you, so that you have words to discuss with other people, the important factors. I want all discussions to go back to abortion. We can celebrate this week of inauguration because I believe it was a win, a lot of wins. But we also have to realize that there is a scourge on our country. And it's called abortion. And we need to be on the front lines of this. We need to be engaged on a grassroots level, a neighborhood level, and even a political level. And I believe so strongly we need to be engaged at a church level. I believe if the church can just simply embrace God's ways, it seems like that shouldn't be a big ask. If the church can just embrace God's ways and realize that life and life more abundantly is the job description of Jesus Christ himself, that we can obviously appreciate the importance and the value of life here in our culture. And if just the body of Christ can engage that, I believe that we could easily eclipse a 51%. And then the mood starts changing, and then politicians become more bold, and they have more courage to actually implement policy that mirrors public opinion. We just saw it. So I can prove that it works. And we can do it again. So my friends, I'm asking you to be fired up about this as I am. I have some vision and some strategy for this as we go forward with this podcast and others. And I'm excited to share those with you in the future. Would you go to pushbackculture.org and leave any comments or questions for me there? There's a full catalog of my previous podcasts that I would love for you to engage in 2025. I also encourage you to go to gofam.org and see the incredible resources as our website is being revamped. and reorganize. There's great resources for you there. Hey, and would you go to Facebook and to Instagram and connect with GoFam Ministries? There, you're going to hear about my podcast. You're going to hear about some future podcast ideas. You're going to hear about our resources. There's a lot of things that we're doing, and you're going to see where Amy and I are teaching and traveling around the country, doing the things that the Lord has called us to do. So we'd love to connect with you in all sorts and various ways. So let's go together now to set and shape the culture.